so much for being with us on this Monday afternoon. I'm Julie Grant. Another case we're closely following for you here at Court TV is the Ohio family massacre trial. Defendant George Wagner is accused of helping his brother and his parents allegedly carry out a plan to murder 8 members of the Roden family. Now, this is over what prosecutors say was a custody dispute between brother Jake and Hannah Mae Roden, one of the victims. Now, we saw Jake testifying against his brother last week. We didn't actually see it because he opted out of the video, but our crew was there. They were watching all of it, and we learned that he told the jury the reason he killed Hannah and the rest of the Roden family. Joy Lim-Nakrin, legal correspondent on the ground there in Ohio, breaks down the details.
It was one of the most notorious crimes in Ohio state history. 8 members of one family all killed, allegedly by 4 members of another.
This was not a crime of passion. This was not in a fit of rage. This was not in self-defense. These murders happened after a period of 3 months of planning and plotting and purchasing and preparing and executing 8 individuals of a family.
Now, confessed killer Jake Wagner is sharing explosive testimony off camera in the trial of his brother, George Wagner IV, and it's drawing observers from far and wide.
Until you get in the courtroom and you look at how the jury looks at the defendants, looks at the prosecution, what goes on in there, you don't get the real feel.
Jake Wagner admits to killing 5 members of the Roden family and shooting a 6th, all over a child custody dispute. He told the jury he feared Hannah Roden, the mother of his child Sophie, would allow her to be sexually molested.
I think what's credible is he was, in his sick little mind, he was protecting Sophie, his daughter.
It was a familiar theme. Earlier in the trial, Jake Wagner's ex-wife, Elizabeth Armour, testified that she had been similarly accused.
Basically, Angela accusing you of sexually assaulting Sophie, is that right?
That's correct.
You must have been horrified by this.
Yes.
And that caused you a great amount of concern as to what the heck am I doing living with these people if they think I'm abusing a child?
Yes. When they threatened to murder me, that was when I came to understand that the marriage was not going to work out.
Okay, and it was Jake who threatened to murder you, right?
Jake threatened that he and his extended family would murder me.
The state argues the Wagners acted as a unit, all for one, one for all.
The financial records also just confirm what we already knew, which was this is a very, they function as one unit in pretty much everything they do. Financially is no exception.
Testimony from George Wagner's ex-wife painted his mother, Angela, as exercising bizarre control over her sons.
Well, you said previously that you were not allowed to visit your family and your family was not permitted to visit you, correct?
Yes.
And who determined that? Who made those determinations?
It was Angela's house, so it was her rules. It applied to basically everything. Cooking, cleaning, laundry. It all had to be done the way that she wanted it, or you have to either redo it or she'll just do it herself.
What were the rules that Angela had for the types of sexual relations you could engage in with your husband?
You wasn't allowed to give you'd go to hell. And you had to only have sex to have children.
Jake Wagner testified his brother was present for the killings and even helped in the cover-up. But he insists George Wagner did not shoot anyone on the night in question. George Wagner's defense claims he was not even there.
There's no physical evidence George was at any of those murder scenes. There's no DNA, there's no prints. And BCI knew he had no motive.
On the witness stand, Jake Wagner also admitted to making several prior statements that could mitigate his brother's guilt, including, George didn't like the idea. He didn't want me to do it. He thought of Hannah like a sister. Jake Wagner pleaded guilty to 8 counts of murder and other charges in what the defense called the best plea deal in the history of the state of Ohio.
The defense, Parker, he stole my thunder when he said, you cut the greatest deal in the history of Ohio, and he did. And I really feel that the state let Ohio down by cutting this type of deal with this group.
Jake Wagner, the confessed triggerman, won't face death. George Wagner's defense says neither should he, and that after all, he is not guilty of the murders.
We couldn't help who our parents were. We are. And just like George cannot help that he was born into the Wagner family.
All right, let's talk about this a little more. Tell us what you think. Go head over to Twitter @CourtTV. It's our network handle. In the studio with me still, I have attorneys Jesse Lahl and Daryl Cohen. All right, so after Jake's testimony was all said and done, what are we really walking away with? That George, he's saying, was there, didn't shoot anybody, but helped with the cover-up. If I had to boil it down very succinctly, the reporting Joy just gave us, that would be what I'd say. But what happens in terms of criminal liability with this? Daryl, I'll let you go first. What kind of liability is George Wagner looking at based on Jake's testimony here, please?
George could be convicted of those murders as a party to a crime, as part of the conspiracy. George could not be convicted of those and said he was guilty of covering it up. He's a witness that did not, quote, participate, but he's a witness that participated by not admitting it, not coming forth to the police, to law enforcement. So there's several things that could happen, or it could be a combination of all of those. But he clearly could be convicted of the murders, even though he didn't commit the murders, if the testimony is to be believed.
Let's take a listen to a clip from Tabitha Clater. She is Jake Wagner's ex-girlfriend. She's talking about how Hannah really feared the Wagners.
Hannah said he wants a DNA test. Yeah, I was shocked when we split up too. It was my call, but I was scared. I had the treat over my shoulders. I think I was supposed to say threat. Sorry.
It's okay.
Over my shoulders. If I ever tried leaving, nobody would find me. And I seen what happened the night you left, and I know what would happen if they would have gotten you back to the house.
Okay, so there was fear. We know there was fear, there was tension. This was a bad situation. Family, of course, supporting family. Loyalty is going, where it's going here. Tell me, when we look at George Wagner's defense and what he's looking at, Jesse, we saw in Joy's report, his team is not conceding anything. They're not saying he was present. They're saying he wasn't even there. And looking at what the state's provided so far as a link, what do you think in terms of the shot that the defense has in this case?
They have a reasonably good shot, okay, because it really depends on what the jury is going to believe. They've got to take the word of a convicted killer, Jake Wagner. They've got to really believe the musketeer theory that the Wagner family is all for one and one for all. And they've got to believe that the victim had a plausible fear based on the testimony, who's reading from a document. I mean, you've got, and then the jury has to decide whether they believe these witnesses, whether they believe this evidence, to say that George Wagner was, number one, part of the conspiracy, number two, present at the scene, number three, committed any overt acts with regards to this horrible murders.
Yeah, I think they've got a very good chance at winning this case. I really do. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't like the way the AG's office is trying this one. To me, it is kitchen sink city. Daryl Cohen, you're smiling. Do you agree with me here?
It's a definite maybe.
Yeah.
Do I like it? No, but you and I, all three of us know that the trial of a case is not A, B, C, D, and if we do A, B, C, D, we win. You do this, you have a theory, you may have to change your theory. It's not unlike a football game. There's a play, it's going to be an RPO, and all of a sudden, everybody's covered, and so you check down and you throw it to that person. Here, if he is there, and he did not report it, did not make any attempt to stop it, if that's what the evidence shows, then he is easily guilty as if he committed the murders. So we don't know. And as it plays out, we'll begin to know, and the jury will feel for those witnesses, and they look at the facial expressions and the body language, and they look to see whether there's any communication, oral or otherwise.
And I love how you just put that, Daryl, to kind of just put a bow on it. This is going to come down to, can the state prove George Wagner was there? Can they prove that he was physically there? Remember that shoe print evidence? I kept waiting, you know, for the other shoe to drop, so to speak, you know. It never did. They were never able to definitively say those were his prints in that blood. No, they couldn't do it. So to your point, you're spot on. Unless they can physically say he was there and was a, you know, party to the crime, you know, it could be just he might be looking at whatever the accessory after the fact kind of stuff is, you know, where they're saying that if he covered it up, you know, but again, we haven't really seen that either. That's, you know, to be continued. Big question marks. Jesse, and then we're going to go to break.
I don't think there's any physical evidence to link George Wagner to the evidence other than the words of a convicted killer with these delusions of that his child is being sexually assaulted, as testified to. So, and no evidence of the assault. So are 12 people willing to believe Jake Wagner with these delusions and the fact that he committed these heinous crimes? Right. You know, tough call.
That's evidence. That's evidence.
Yeah. From the word of a criminal defense attorney.
From the word of a former prosecutor.
Well, we'll see if they bring the evidence and what the jury brings in the way of either a conviction or a not guilty or a, you know, hung jury. Who knows what we're going to see on this one. This case has a ways to go. We're going to continue monitoring it in Ohio. We've also got it live streaming for you. If you want to watch it continuously, you can always do that on courttv.com.